good afternoon, good evening even, welcome. Now I'm hoping that there's lots of you out there, or there's a few at the moment. I know there's not a great deal of you, and I'm just going to give a couple, there's a delay on the video, so I'm not yet aware that we've gone live, so I'm just going to wait for that couple of minutes until you all pick up and you start either giving me some hearts or some comment in the box, and hopefully we should be okay now. There's always that slight delay and there's always that panic where I'm concerned that I haven't actually created a live audience, or I'm ready for the live audience. So if you're here, send me a heart or comment in the box. Let me know that you can hear me okay and that you can see me quite clearly. I'm looking on my phone, which is just by my side, and I can see hopefully that we're going to be able to fit some designs into the screen. Now, if you're in Wales, I like to moan about the weather. Today it is raining, the weather is really quite bad, and it's cold and it's wet and it's windy, and I believe our rugby team are playing today. They're playing Italy, and I think we're in for the booby prize. I think we might be the team lowest down. So before we start, come on Wales! Come on Wales! We don't want to be last. Kick that ball. Let's get going. Right, let's just have a quick look. Let's pop my glasses on. So Josephine, hi. Hi Alona, Jane, Lynn and Beth we've got at the moment. So that's 17 watching, 5 of you have commented. Welcome to the demonstration. Today I'm going to be looking at 3 sort of Eastery themed arrangements, and let me just turn the sound down. There we are. 3 Eastery themed arrangements, 4 Eastery themed arrangements possibly. Last demonstration went on and on and on and on, and I think I ended up doing 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm hoping today I'm going to get it into an hour. I do have to be somewhere later on this afternoon, so I'm hoping to go through them a bit quicker than last time and not have too many designs to show you. Now I'm going to start with this pretty container. Well, I've got 2 cameras on the go again this week, so if we have a look close up there, and if you're part of my Facebook group, I would have shown you this when we talked about containers. And it's an oval container. This is a fairly new purchase, so new, it's got the price on the bottom. And this has come from my local supplier, but you can buy these through Oasis Home and Hobby. If you're a shop florist, then you'll be able to buy them through Oasis, the company Oasis. If you're a hobby arranger, Oasis have a company called Home and Hobby, which you can buy containers like this from the internet. You might even find something similar on Amazon or eBay, but it's an oval shape and it's like a pottery or a ceramic, and it's got that beautiful sort of quite a modern leaf shape on it. And what I liked was that it blended quite nicely with the colour combination of my orchid. Just going to check the comments. Somebody else is cheering on Wales, well done. Hi Sarah, hi Aaron from Germany, well done. And that's another thing I like to know. Pop in the comment box where you're watching from, because it's fascinating how many people manage to find me and watch me and appreciate the tutorials. If you are watching on replay, put hashtag replay in the comment box. So if you're watching this later tonight or tomorrow, and then I can monitor how many people are watching and how many people watch it in the replay. It's also good for you to pop in the comment box if there are any particular designs you would like me to teach you, and I'll periodically check the comments. So if anybody's asking anything, I should be able to respond. Right, so this orchid, you can see is a little floppy, and that's probably because it's quite old, and I bought it to do a YouTube video with it, and I haven't had a chance to do it, so it's been hanging around here for a little while. I did feel the colour link was really good with the container, So it's not the best, the stem isn't the best quality, it's quite floppy. And I did think about using the weight of the stem to its best advantage and use it in an arrangement so it was curved. But then I thought that was quite similar to what I did last time with the hellebores. And incidentally, those hellebores lasted for 10 days, so they lasted really well. So rather than go to one side, I'm going to go straight up instead, and I'm going to create a little bit like a parallel sort of style arrangement. I have shown you the foam in the bottom, but there's 2/3 of a block on its side, and I've just stuffed a little short bit to stop it moving around. I don't need any tape over the top because it's nice and secure, and I'm going to place this orchid off to one side, and it's going to go probably about 1.5 times the height of my container. It's not the tallest of material that I'm going to use, but it's my most important flower. It's probably the focal flower and what we would call the choice flower, so it's the most expensive flower. Because I'm wary of the fact that it's a bit soft and a bit flexible, I'm going to bring in my favourites. If you don't like twigs, then you're following the wrong person, but I'm almost going to use some of this lichen covered moss slightly behind it, so it acts as a bit of a support network for it. So it's almost like that twig at the back is holding it into position. So you won't really see the twig, but it is going to support my very heavy orchid, and that's a nice little trick. It could be a piece of willow, you could make a framework. If you're on the Facebook group, the private Facebook group, somebody shared a beautiful design where they'd made like a trellis work at the back, and that would work just as well. But it's supporting, rather than wasting that orchid, it's going to give a bit of extra support. So then, to complement it and to give my design some width, I'm going to use some of these beautiful lichen covered branches out at the side. Now, if you've been following me for the last couple of weeks on Facebook, because I have a Facebook page which is Sharon Dower Floral Innovations, and then I have a private Facebook group called Sharon's Innovations Group, and anybody can join that. And this week I've been trolled a little bit over the last 2 weeks, I've been trolled a little bit for using twigs. So if you're not a twig lover, you're definitely in the wrong place. But the side movement of that lovely textural lichen is going to widen the arrangement. My orchid is almost like a waxy appearance, and that rougher lichen, that grey mossy lichen on there, is going to give it a really good contrast. And then at the base, towards the front, I'm going to use some seasonal heather. Oh, I couldn't think what it was called then. Seasonal heather. So you might have this in your garden if it's the spring sort of time where you are now. I appreciate that many of you are in different parts of the world and you might have completely different weather, but I'm going to use this out to the side to give me a bit of width. Now, in traditional frigid parallel lines, but as long as 75% of it is going upwards in those groups, you don't have to be as continental, or as, not continental is not the right word, you don't have to be as rigid as those continental designs that you taught when you go to college. Flower arranging has moved on a little bit from those days, and we take in more influences from nature, from meadow fields, from trees and branches, and we've now gone a little softer. Let's just check for comments. Right, there's 30 of you today. Most names I recognise because you're a member of the Facebook group or you comment regularly. So we've got Sarah, who regularly contributes. She's in Middlesbrough. We've got Connie. Hi Connie, she's from Malaysia. We've got Rosemary in good old Wales, so well done. She's in Mid Wales in Llanfair. And we've got Beth from Bristol. Hi Beth. Lynn from Cambridge. Oh, and Josephine, she's in Spain. I had no idea she was in Spain. And we're getting some thumbs up for the twigs, which is what I like. So we got a lovely colour link between the heather, the container and that orchid on one side. And now I'm going to bring in a darker rose, which is not quite the same colour as the centre of my orchid, but it's the nearest I could get. And this is just an ordinary supermarket rose. You don't often find an orchid like this in the supermarket, but you could replace that with the plant eucalyptus, and you could cut, no, not a eucalyptus, the plant orchid, and you could use the stem in an arrangement. Right, nowadays I have mentioned it's freezing cold here today, and there is a heater just by my side, and it has caused my roses to open a little bit faster than I would like. But what I'm going to do with these is create a little line, staggered line on the opposite side to where my orchid is. So I'm going to come down on one side. Now, working with a heater right by your side probably isn't a good idea, because it has really forced these roses to open. Most florist shops are really quite cold, but I can't bear standing here and talking to you without any heating on at all. So I've got a heater by my side. So I'm going to bring like a staggered line down through the front, remembering that by bringing one back we get that visual weight and that depth at the back. We don't need those really poker straight parallel lines as if they're soldiers standing in the line. We can be a bit more playful and create something more natural. And I've done the same with the front, one forward, so that we bring that colour right the way through, giving us that three-dimensional look. And then I'm going to pop one a little closer to the foam. The good thing about this container is that you can keep it nicely topped up with water. And then we've got two quite loose parallel lines that you could have a bottle of alcohol in the middle there and spread them out slightly, and that would make a nice gift for somebody. But that's the basic shape. So two flowers plus a filler flower, that could be gyp, September flower, wax flower, and hopefully the colours are all really lovely and they link nicely with my container. Now I'm going to add in some extra bits and pieces. So I think I'm going to use these ones. I was thinking of using ruscus, florist ruscus, but it's quite fussy alongside the heather. So instead I'm going to use, these are yucca. So if you are familiar with the yucca plant, these have come off the side of the yucca. Dracaena would be quite good, or cordyline. And I'm going to pop these towards the back. The heather is quite fussy, and I'm thinking that the Italian ruscus, the soft ruscus, would have been really fussy as well. So we've got a different texture there in between. And now I've got to sort of fill this area in here with probably greenery, but I'm just going to add in some catkins or pussy willow, I never know, catkins, pussy willow. Nice curvy line, so it brings some height up, right up to the very top, draws your eye upwards. I'm sure by now, if you've been watching me, then you know that this is a line material and it draws your eye upwards. And what I don't want to do here is finish them off at exactly the same height. So I'm going to lower this one slightly down. Right, so let's have a look. Let's step back and see how we're doing. I think that's lovely. So we've got lines that bring your eye in, and then they come upwards, they come down, and they go back upwards. So we've got rhythm. Our eyes are moving throughout the arrangement at all times. Right, so something down low now. Let's grab my greenery. I think we're going to go with some rosemary. Now, rosemary can be used as a tall, thin greenery to give you a line, or you can use it tucked down low to give you some texture. And I'm going to pop this one right down low so that we're covering our foam, but we're also bringing in a nice grey sort of colour link with the container. It's quite a natural colour container, but we get that little cluster of the rosemary. If you're a keen gardener, then rosemary is a really good one to have. You can use it in so many different designs. It's evergreen, so you've got it in the garden all year round. And of course, you have that beautiful scent to it as well. Just at the back here, you probably can't see it from the camera. Let's bring the other camera in. If I tilt it backwards, I've got quite a bit of foam here. So what I'm going to do there, let's get rid of that leaf because that's looking really sad. I'm going to add in some extra heather in there, I think. Now, if it's 2:15, the rugby has just started. Poor Wales, we're normally a good rugby team, but I don't know what's happened to us this year. I'm going to periodically wave my flag. Come on, Wales! In the hope that they're going to hear me. And they might score a few goals. I nearly said goals, it's not goals. They're going to score a few tries. Just clear this down. Right, so the back of my design is completely covered. I brought one rose back so that it gives depth. When you look at it from the front, you can see that rose. Oh, I've done it again. Hang on, we swap cameras. I'll do that again. I've brought a rose to the back, which gives me depth, and I brought some material to the back as well. We look at it from the front. This rose should be visible through the gap so that it makes your eye travel backwards and gives you depth, and that makes a really good little arrangement. Now what I want to do is hopefully add my little bunnies in. Now we used these last year in an Easter arrangement, and what I'm anticipating doing is putting one at the back and one towards the front. And I've accidentally thrown my stick in the bin. Now these little rabbits have come from somewhere like Home Bargains or B&M, which is a store in the UK, and they're made of polystyrene, so it means I can insert a kebab stick up its bottom, and then that is going to sit in the front alongside my orchid, just like that. If I had a wider container, I would sit them alongside one another, but I'm going to put this one, the little male one, in at an angle, so he's sort of in the back, I think, just behind where that twig is. Now I could have put these in at the very beginning and worked around them, but I wasn't 100% sure whether I was going to use them. So let's get him in there. And what's lovely about these is the colours on the two little bunnies are similar to the base colour. So I think that's gorgeous. I would love to receive that. And before I finish that, I've got some twisted little twigs. This is corylus, so this is hazel. I'm just going to add them at the back to give me a bit of extra height behind that orchid. Now this is a design that you could give to somebody as a gift. You could put an Easter egg in there instead of the little bunnies. But I had those two straw bunnies from last year, so I think that looks really fab. Now I'm not a lover of things that are always symmetrical. If you like symmetry, you might want to put your little bunny over this side to make it symmetrical. But I'm thinking they're husband and wife and they're best friends and they want to sit snugly alongside one another. So what do we think of that? That's design number one. And when I look in the camera, I do say this quite often on the YouTube videos, these are cerise pink. They're a really bright pink, but they're almost an orangey red on the camera. So when I take a photograph of it, and I'll upload it to the Facebook group. If you're not a member, it's Sharon's Innovations group and it's over on Facebook. You do have to answer 3 questions, and the only reason for that is so that I can stop trolls, because we do get people that want to come in my little flower arranging group to harass me and be unkind. So I have to vet you before you can join. But what do we think? 2 little bunnies quite happily nesting in amongst their garden. Right, so hello, thumbs up for the twigs. We've got Julie from Barnstable. Oh, hello! I went to their Christmas lunch. Well, I demonstrated for them for their Christmas lunch. We've got Roberta in Northern Ireland. We've got Anna Maria in Italy. I'm glad we've got some thumbs up and some hearts. So I hope you like that one. So if you like this container, have a look on Oasis Home and Hobby and you might be able to find something similar. And I'll photograph those, maybe not today, but I'll add them to the little Facebook group and you can have a look at them. Right, what are we going to do next? So next I'm going to do an arrangement that you could use for the church. It's Easter sort of theme, so I've got white oriental lilies in it and I've got some palm leaves. Now tomorrow, I had to panic then because I thought I'd forgotten the container. Tomorrow on the YouTube channel is going to be a design for Palm Sunday stroke Easter, and it's all white lilies and it's quite traditionally arranged. So I thought I'd show you an alternative using white lilies and some greenery, a more modern version or a slightly different version. And I'm going to use a gold container. Now if you arrange flowers for the church, we've been through Lent, which is part of the Easter celebration, so there probably hasn't been flowers in the church for Lent. And then when Easter comes, it's generally white or white and gold or white and yellow flowers. So I'm going to go with a white and gold theme. This container was used for a YouTube video, but it was white. I can't remember what I did in it. And Joan, who's a regular member of the online courses that we do, and she's a regular subscriber to YouTube, asked me if I would talk through how to spray paint a container. So this was originally white and I've used a spray can. This one is the Oasis brand, and the best thing to do if you've got a really shiny surface is gently rub it with a bit of sandpaper first, just to build up a key and a rough surface, and then you have to do lots of little light dustings of the paint. Don't try and cover it all in one go because it will run and it will look a real mess. What you need to do is to really shake that can until you can't hear the ball bearings moving around in the can, and then go outside. You need plenty of fresh, clean air, lots of ventilation around you, and then do lots of light layers and leave it to dry, and then go back and do another light layer, and then you'll get a fairly even distribution. Now I didn't sand this back yesterday, so there's a possibility that this will scratch, but I've done it really just for today's video, so I'm not too concerned if I have to give it another coat at some point. You can also buy like a primer in a supermarket, not a supermarket, a DIY shop, and you can sort of spray it with a primer first. But it's a good way of changing containers and creating different colour combinations. You might be thinking, why have I got, this is cellophane, why have I got that cellophane sticking out of the top? And the reason for that is that I didn't want to see that gold sort of, or not the gold, I didn't want to see the Oasis through that gap. So let's have a look in the other camera. Now my phone is just shown that there's an advert being shown, so I'm not quite sure whether you're still with me or whether you're watching an advert. But if you look through the gap in the middle there, that ornate part, you can see the gold cellophane underneath, and that's really the only reason. I got something very strange going on here with my phone. Let's get rid of that. That's the only reason really that I've got that gold cellophane, is so that you can't see the green foam there in the middle. That could have been moss, you could have put some ribbon in there, but I didn't want to see the green. I'm very fussy with things like that. So now I can cut this top section off. I was fortunate that I had gold cellophane, because the clear cellophane looked even worse. You could see a really shiny substance underneath. Let's cut this first. But I thought that was an easy way of covering that gap there in the middle. Oh, I've done. So if you are buying containers and you're not sure whether they're going to work for the job, think about whether you're going to be able to fit floral foam in the top, or whether you're going to have a secondary container, something like a saucer on the top. Excuse me a sec. Is it wide enough to hold a block of foam that you need for the particular job you're going to do? And are you giving yourself extra problem by having these holes on the side? Now this design is going to be quite tall, so I'm going to drop it down. And I might slightly pull the camera away. I'm just going to, bear with me, I'm just going to move the camera back. I think I'm very clever when I can do things like this. I'm hoping. Now you can see all the mess on the desk, possibly. Right, I'm not going to go back too far because I want you to be able to see the top part of it. But this choice of flowers is going to be all white, so white lilies. And I got some beautiful gold twigs. I love twigs, you've probably worked that out already. These were originally white and I've given them the same colour spray as the container, and I'm going to do like a blocking and grouping arrangement rather than that traditional design that you're going to see on YouTube tomorrow. Right, so let's get a nice piece of height with the twigs. Now these are birch twigs and I've bought these through the online supplies. Can you see me if I go over there? Yes. But there's nothing stopping you going out and picking any type of branch, twig, and giving it a new lease of life with some gold or silver. If you've got ones hanging around from Christmas and you're not sure what to do with them, then just rejuvenate them. There's some beautiful funky colours that are coming through fashionably. Oh, that didn't make any sense at all. There are some beautiful funky colours that are going to be very in vogue this year. Bright cerezas and bright oranges, and you could spray paint your twigs to be more relevant and more current for today. So a bit of a parallel grouping again, straight up, slightly off to one side. I'm trying to give you a different version of an arrangement for Easter, different to what you're going to see tomorrow when the YouTube video is live. Let's just check. Oh, I'm glad I got twig supporters. And then my foliage for this is going to be some palms. Now if you're in a part of the world that has the same sort of climate as we do here in the UK, which at the moment is wet, very wet, then it's better to store your palms in a plastic bag. They've been sitting in water, but the reason the plastic bag stays over the top is because it keeps the humidity into that packaging. It stops the palms from drying out. So if you're somewhere really hot, you need to definitely do this. If it's somewhere where it's colder, you don't need to worry about it so much. But it's going to prevent your leaves drying out and looking really poor. Now what I'm going to do first of all is give them a bit of a trim, and I'm going to make like a point instead of that really wide open shape to the palm, that very wide structure. So I've now made it more like an arrow. I just stand back and hold them up that side. So this is the cut one, and that one is the more flexible one. This one gives you a more dynamic shape. This one is much softer. So I'm going to do that with a couple of them, just again to show you what you can do and how you can manipulate your foliage and change its shape. And sometimes if your palm is past its best and it's gone a bit dry on the edges, then this can be an alternative method to get them to last a little longer. And I could, if I wanted to, use that same gold spray to give them a bit of zhuzh and a bit of a different colour. You can dry palms quite successfully, and if you're patient you can bend and manipulate them and shape them as well, but I don't have the patience for that. Whoop. So we've got that parallel grouping on one side. Now I'm going to bring in the palms alongside it, staggering them down in height as I come towards the front. I'm only going to use 2 for a minute, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do with the third one. It almost, isn't that very, that reminds me of Romans. It's very historical. Okay, so nice bit of shape there. I am going to cover in the back, but I'm going to put my lilies in first. Lilies, the reason I'm sort of unsure about what I'm going to do at this stage is because the lily stems are really big and fat and chunky, and now I'm thinking, Sharon, have you got enough foam in there for the size of your lilies? So I might be looking a bit perplexed at this stage, but it'll all come together, I'm sure. Now, if you're watching tomorrow's video, I talk through the different standards and different qualities of lilies. The ones I'm going to use today are supermarket lilies, and they are all quite open. I don't see the point in demonstrating to you with flowers that are still in bed, because you don't see what the design is going to look like. So these are, that one's not. These ones are supermarket lilies that I bought in probably 10 days or so that they were open, ready for me to do tomorrow's video. So they're not the best quality, and you wouldn't want to use these for a gift or for the church because they're not going to last long enough. But it's nice to see what the design is going to look like when it's finished. And then I do have one stem of florist grade lilies, and you can see this one has about 7 heads on it. I'm going to chop off 2 to make this narrower and more streamlined, and this is going to give me the emphasis on one side of the arrangement. And now I'm thinking, please floral foam, don't break in half while I'm live on YouTube. So that's the sort of effect we get. The palms are still at the base, at the back of the design. It's a bit flat at the moment, but I will bring more foliage towards the back. And in floral design, you should start with the buds, working your way down to the more open stems at the bottom. So now I'm going to go slightly off to the side. I'm going to cut this big one in half. Remember again, scale is really important with big flowers. There's no good arranging big flower heads in a small vase. You need to be able to think about the location that you're going to display the vase in. Needs to be a big area that can accommodate the lilies. So I've slightly gone to one side, so you've got a bit of an asymmetric shape coming on. And then this one hopefully is going to tuck in at the front. And then I'm going to stand back and have a look, see how it's come together. I'm going to move this one over slightly this way because I have another flower to come down on this side here. So I really wanted that emphasis of the lilies on one side. If we go all the way around to sort of that position, that's the front where you're looking at it now. And then I've got some ordinary white double croissants that I'm going to bring down this side here. So if you are arranging this at home for yourself, you would do this when the flowers were still in bed. But the idea when the arrangement is finished is that the smaller flowers are on the outside and the bigger flowers are in the middle where the focal point is, or at the bottom where the focal point is. Right, so it looks a bit strange at the moment because one side looks heavier and I haven't completely put all the greenery in, but now I'm going to use quite an ordinary flower that is still used a lot in floral designs. It's a fairly inexpensive chrysanthemum, and I'm going to group this together on the opposite side. to the left of my lilies. And what will be lovely with this arrangement, what will be fabulous, is that you did a matching pair on either side of the altar or either side of the windows. But we're going to create a mass sort of column of those on one side and then the lilies on the opposite side, just like that. And then I'm going to bring one of these out towards the front so we have the left hand side of the arrangement complete. And thankfully my floral foam didn't fall apart, although I might regret that in a minute when I add my greenery. So we got the height and I've nearly got the width in there, but I'm not doing that traditional triangle where we're matching on both sides. I'm just creating two columns massed together to create a bit of emphasis. And with the couple of chrysanthemum heads that are left, I'm going to work them in at the back because we don't have any actual weight at the back and I don't have any depth. It's a very flat arrangement at the moment. Right, let's get rid of some of my rubbish. Well, we're not doing too bad for time. I'm not going to be here today for 2 hours and 15 minutes. This third one that I cut into that spear shape, I'm now going to work backwards so that it starts to bring your eye backwards. And then I'm going to add some more palms at the side. Now, if you look at the overall shape now, it's almost like a teardrop. Because my lilies are round and my chrysanthemums are round, I don't have any points to make it angular and squared. So the foliage in the minute is going to give me a more rounded or more pointed edge to it. I'm just thinking, do I need to be over here? No, I need to be over here. It's very confusing when you look in the camera. Right. So we have some more palms. Let's have a look at a nice shaped one. So a bit longer this time, and I happen to have two that are similar in size. So I'm going to group them close together. Now lilies are notoriously difficult to get to open. You need to buy them fairly far in advance, particularly if maybe you're arranging for a wedding. If you want to get them to open quicker, just get rid of that because that's snapped. Then you need them in bright light. A lot of people say that it's warmth, but it's the light will open them more than the heat. So bright light and a nice sunny windowsill, and they do say, although it doesn't work for me, but I'm going to pass on this little tip, is that the stamen, so there's little brown parts of the flower that cause you problems because they damage your curtains and your furniture. They do say that if you drop a few of those in the water, it will encourage the flowers to open. I personally think it's a bit of an old wives' tale, but it's worth a go. If you get it to work, then I'm happy for you. So let's just check for questions. Oh, there we are. Lynn is just saying that the container that I used first of all is available in Home and Hobby, and it's £7.55. So not bad. It's a design that's quite versatile. You can do lots of arrangements with it. I'm not quite sure if Home and Hobby are only for the UK, but you could search for something that's oval and boat shaped in a similar manner. And now I'm going to use the palms to come backwards so that my design isn't really flat there at the back. Now I'm only using palms in this arrangement because I'm thinking it's Palm Sunday, I think a week Sunday, a week tomorrow. So there might be some of you out there that are arranging for the church, or you might be doing something for your home. So I'm only using palms in this one, but you could use anything that's long and flat rather than thick and bunchy, because that tends to work better. I'm just going to sit back and see how it is, and then I'm going to finish. I'm going to add a bit more gold, I think, because why not, isn't it? If we've got twigs, we might as well put them in. going to bring some extra palms underneath. Now if you haven't got lilies, this could be another flower. This would work really well with alstroemeria. You could group your alstroemeria tightly together. You could have roses on the opposite side. You could make it more symmetrical by balancing the lilies off on either side. But when you compare it to what's coming tomorrow for YouTube, you will see why I've done two different styles. I have tucked in the little buds of the lilies at the back. They were the few that had snapped off. But if you've got any bud vases in the house or little jam jars, you could always put those lilies in there to make an extra arrangement. And what I'm going to do with the remainder of my twigs is bring them a little bit more down towards the front of the arrangement. Now I think twigs, we've had this right saga on the internet over the last week. I think that if you're a home arranger and you're on a limited budget, collecting a few free twigs, catkins, pussy willows, anything that you can forage for in whatever area you're in, really adds an extra dimension to an ordinary supermarket bunch of flowers, and I think it gives extra value for money for that design, and you could be quite creative with a few twigs. The internet went a little bit bonkers when I did a very short video for St David's Day using twigs, and even today, 2 weeks later, I'm still getting people chopsing about my post. Right, so you might not like this because I've only brought the twigs down on one side, so the gold is only on one side. Imagine this as a matching pair on either side. So what do you think? It's a bit, I think that's the front. It'll look better when I photograph it because I'll get it in the right position. It does at the moment look like there's a really big gap here. But I've got to remember that these heads are yet to open, and that will fill that gap in there. Instinctively, I haven't gone, I've just gone to get one more head. Instinctively, I want to sort of put another lily head in here, which makes the shape a bit better. But if you start doing that, I now feel that I need one over here, no, this side, I need one in here, and that you go on and on and on changing the shape. Just hold that there. So the most difficult thing of flower arranging, I think, is knowing when to stop. And I know that that head is going to open, so are these here, so I don't want to fill in any more in that section there. There's nothing worse than overcrowded, cluttered design. You should be able to see all of the flowers clearly, and there should be space in between for you to see the individual flowers. I'm looking at this in 3 dimension, you're looking at it flat on a screen, so you can't see the individual heights of the flowers. Hopefully you've enjoyed that one. You can see beautiful outline shape, so I always insist you have an outline shape. Here in the UK and sort of parts of Europe, we're obsessed with triangles and circles and oval shapes and squares, whereas a lot of the international arrangers don't follow those rules. They look at the shape of the flower, the way the flower is growing, and then they create a design with the personality of the flowers as the most important feature. We do shapes. We are all drilled and programmed to do a particular outline shape. And I'm hoping that that's a fairly good example of a narrowish triangle. It is visually heavier at the bottom, but once this opens, it will compensate for that. So let's just check for messages. Yeah, so Jane's just commented, thank you Jane. No flowers during Lent, and it's normally Easter Day is the first time flowers will come back into the church. Obviously it depends on the denomination of the church and the religion. Other religions and festivals will be different. My very basic knowledge of flowers colours for the church are that it's normally all white for Easter, or white and yellow, or white and gold. But I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. So that's design number 2. Can you see that? No, you can't. Let's just, I'm not sure. Oh, it's probably not the best angle for that. Right, so, I'm rushing through them today. We got 45 minutes and I've done 2. Let's just clear out the rubbish and then we'll start with a low down arrangement. I'll lift it up again. So, I'm hoping that we haven't lost too many people to go and watch the rugby. It's twice now we've clashed with the rugby. Come on, Wales! Come on, Wales! Right, so this is also a new container. I haven't used this on YouTube, and I don't think I've talked about this at all. It's a round wooden container, and they came in 2 sizes, so I have a slightly smaller one as well. I think this is quite versatile for table arrangements. You could do a parallel and a circle in there. And I've bought these from a company, and I'm not sponsored. I really do need a sponsor. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but this is from a company in Wales, and they're called AFS, which stands for Artificial Floral Supplies, I think. They have a website, so if you search AFS Florist Supplies, you'll find it. They're in Taftswell, which is just outside Cardiff, and they have an online shop, and I believe they serve the public as well as businesses, but there's probably a minimum order value. So I'm going to use it today to create a round table arrangement with some candles in the middle. One of my favourite colour combinations, and it reminds me a lot of the 80s and the early 90s, is blue and orange. If you're studying to be a florist, then blue and orange are complementary colours, and they are opposite one another on the colour wheel. And if you were around in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, then our home decor was blue and orange. We had kitchens that were blue and orange. We had sort of blues and peaches for our interior decorating in our living room. The youngsters will be horrified because they like everything grey and white and beige, but we had very, very brightly coloured interior decor in the 80s and 90s. Right, so I'm going to do a candle sort of arrangement, an all-round arrangement, but rather than doing it traditional, I think I'm going to do it grouped together. I haven't quite decided. We'll see how it comes together. Let me just grab my flowers on one side. Now these flowers are already cut shorter because I've used them in a different design, but I didn't want to waste them. And running a YouTube channel and doing demonstrations like this means I've got to buy lots of different flowers. So I'm going to use flowers that are already cut short because I use them in a class one day in the week. And that's okay. Let's just get everything that I've got. So I have a gorgeous florist grade rose. This was quite tall, about 60 centimetre when I bought it. It's a beautiful orange. Then I've got a little spray rose, and the heads of these were absolutely full. Look at how many flower heads I had on there. Florist grade one, but what an absolute bargain. Then I have some thistle or some syringium, and I have some hyacinths. Now the hyacinths are really open. Again, they're not going to be used in anything else. They're probably going to be thrown away in a couple of days' time. So I thought it would be lovely to show you how I can arrange with them. And then possibly some small bits of chrysanthemums to fill in. Now in the same florist supplies, and you can probably buy these in other florist supplies as well. I don't think there's a name on it. Let's have a look. No, sometimes they have a name. In the same supplies, I went for these really lovely orange candles, And if you're a florist that works in the wedding industry, or if you've got family getting married, the colour combinations in wedding floristry recently have been lots of greenery and white and green, white and dusky pink and green, and it's moving away now from those very pale colours to very clashing cerezas, oranges, burgundies, particularly for the autumn time. So I picked up some candles because I thought they might carry me through the wedding season, and I did that a bit quickly. On the bottom is that little plastic tripod sort of affair. Shall I show you in the other camera? The camera that I keep forgetting about. So you've got that little prong on the end, and I've placed them in the centre of my floral foam. There we are. Right, so let's go back to the main camera. So we've got 3 there in the middle. Candles nice and tall, and then I'm going to do an outline of eucalyptus, and I've chosen eucalyptus because it's got a bluey grey colour to it, which is going to link really nicely with those bluey grey, those blue flowers. Now I'm calling the hyacinths blue, but I know some of you will probably call them purple, or maybe even violet. But I'm going to go right the way around the outside, quite a loose outline with this loose and floaty eucalyptus. This is a florist grade eucalyptus. It's got a mind of its own, and it's going to drape beautifully over the edge of that container. The wood is quite harsh, it's visually quite heavy, but it's a lovely linking colour with my candles. And I've gone round very randomly and very loose with this soft floaty sort of eucalyptus. If you'd have used something like a leather leaf or an ivy, you wouldn't get such a loose look because it's more compacted. But this has a lot of movement on it. It's really quite pretty. Right, now instead of doing 3 equal placements with my hyacinths, I'm starting with the hyacinth because it's the biggest flower. I'm going to do a group of 2 and one on its own, which is a more European style of arranging. Bear with me one sec. And because they are fully open, they're quite heavy on the top, so the stem itself might not support that really large head. So I'm going to use a wire internally. So I'm just going to slide it up through the base. I've just slid it up there through the bottom. I'll show you that with the kebab stick as well, because the kebab stick is more visually, I should say. You'll see that more clearly. What I've done is I've taken the kebab stick right up the stem here, so when I push it into the foam, there's a bit of extra support on the stem end itself. Soft stem flowers like this should be cut straight across. We don't cut soft stem flowers at an angle. Now this one is a bit twisty turny. It's got a personality of its own, but that's okay. So whereas the 2 designs I did first of all are more rigid, this one is going to be more informal and more relaxed, and this one happens to drape down nicely. And the reason it's draping down like that is because in the arrangement that I used it in previously, I've basically left it in the arrangement, and the weight of the head has drooped forward and it's stayed in that position. But that's going to work quite nicely in the foam dripping over the side of my container, like so. Now, for those traditional ones amongst you who don't like flowers that aren't symmetrical, this is what we call the golden ratio or the golden triangle. It's arranging in different proportions. So traditional arranging we do usually in rules of 3s, and we have 1/3 to 2/3 proportions. If you're in Europe and in other parts of the world, they use different rules. So I'm now creating what we call internal triangles. So I have a visual triangle taking place between the flowers, and it's a bit hard to visualize if you don't know what I'm talking about. So what I will try and do is I'll take a photograph of this from above, and I will draw where the internal triangles are. So we have gaps between the flowers that represent certain proportions. So if you're looking at work on the internet and you look at it and you think that's an absolute mess, there's no symmetry, there's no balance, nothing sort of matches on one side to the other, then it's probably been arranged using proportions that you're not familiar with. And what I've done is I've grouped them together. Let's see if this camera works better. So if we look at this flower and this flower and this one, oh, let's go to that one because you can't see that one. This one, and this one. There's a triangle between the three flowers. This one has a bigger gap, and that represents the 8 proportion. This one has a slightly smaller gap, that represents the 5. So it's this one and that one. And then this has a smaller gap, and that represents the 3. But it's quite hard to understand if you haven't been explained it sort of visually. It's not the easiest of rules to follow. And I know that quite often arrangers see things in magazines and they look at it and they think it's just an absolute mess, and that's because it's hard to understand different guidelines and different rules when we've been taught to do everything symmetrical and everything balanced. If you're studying floristry now, if you're in college studying floristry here in the UK now, then you are taught to learn arranging flowers through something called the design schema, and it shows you how to arrange flowers in a more natural way, because arranging these flowers in these very geometric patterns, those triangles, is quite old-fashioned now. You know, flower arranging has moved on since the 60s. We don't need to be arranging things in those perfect triangles anymore. We can take inspiration from nature, we can take inspiration from landscape, from buildings, not just from a geometric triangle or a circle. Right, okay, so that's my design so far. I've got a peach and a dark orange. Now I'm going to fill in with some eryngium, and the thistle is going to give me a variation in texture. It's also going to link beautifully with the colour of my hyacinths around the outside. Now, hyacinths are a flower that you can pip, and I'll show you that before I'll show you it when I finish this arrangement. It's a flower that you don't have to use on a full stem like this, particularly if you're doing buttonholes or corsages. You can cut it down and use the little pips, the little heads on the top. So the reason I'm looking around the room is because I know there's some pink ones somewhere and I've just spotted where they are, so I'll grab those in a minute. So this is that gorgeous sort of grouping. Well, it's not so much grouped, but we haven't got that symmetrical pattern. I have got gerbera, but I've only got 2, and it's very hard to arrange 2 without them looking like a pair of headlights. So we'll keep those for something else. I'm going to fill in with this little chrysanthemum. Now this is a Santini chrysanth. If you haven't seen these before, I'd probably say this is more of a florist material. We don't often see these in supermarkets. It's like a little mini daisy, and that I'm going to feed in between the flowers now to fill in any gaps. So when I learnt floristry, which was many years ago, back in the early 90s, I know you're thinking, Sharon, you don't look old enough to have been in this industry, but I'm 54. In fact, I'm 55. I had a birthday in January. So I'm 55. I've been in this industry for a really long time, and I have seen lots of changes and improvements, and I've also seen the same trends and the same fashions coming back around, and some is good, some is not so good. But this is a really pretty arrangement that I think that you could give to somebody as a gift, or you could have it in the centre of your table for Easter. I'm just going to fill in slightly. You probably can't see it from where you are, but there are a few gaps. Let's have a look. So let's just turn that round so you can see it up close. Now I think that's just a gorgeous colour combination. I really love that. Right, I'm going to leave that there just to grab a couple of little hyacinths. So this is what I mean by hyacinths that have been pipped. So these are the individual heads of the hyacinth, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with those in a minute. Before I do that, I'm going to use these shorter bits just to tuck in. Now, to get this light wispy sort of effect that I've got here, I can't get used to this camera, it's almost like in reverse. To get this sort of soft wispy look, you need to use flowers that are small and dainty, and nothing too big and heavy, otherwise the design style will look quite different. Right, so I think that's finished. I have got one cut down rose here, which I might as well use up. So that's going to go in that side there. So if you've been to flower arranging classes, particularly if you've taught by old school flower arrangers, you will have been taught to make everything symmetrical on both sides. If there's a matching one, if there's one over here, there's going to be a matching one over here. But to make a more informal arrangement, you work with slightly different guidelines. So I think that's lovely. And you could do that at Christmas in reds and greens. You could do it with peach and blue baubles, like silvery baubles. And for me, the colour link between the candles and the base is just spot on. So that's design number 3. I believe we've only got one arrangement left, which might be a bit sad for all you lot out there, but it's not quite going to go on for 2 hours and 15 minutes like last time. Right, let me just clear these. And then we've got more space. So that's the smaller one. That was holding my flowers. Right, so let's go back to these little little flower heads. Thank you, got lots of nice comments. I love. So Josephine is asking me, so if you're part of my Facebook group, I did an unboxing in the week where I showed some flowers. Those flowers haven't been used today, and you are going to see some in the next arrangement. Those flowers are going in a special job that I can't talk about at the moment. It's not that special. It's special to me, but it's not special to many people. So I can't show you them yet, although I am showing you in a minute. I can't talk about them too much, put it that way. Right, let's swap cameras. Now these are those little hyacinth pips, and hang on, let's get it up here. And you can do this with stephanotis as well, but anything that cuts off the main stem can be used for a buttonhole. So what I'm going to do here is get myself a florist wire. Can you see that there? I'm going to bend the top over to make a very delicate small hook, and I'm just going to swap cameras. I saw a florist online the other day she was making a rose buttonhole, and I wanted to cry because she inserted the wire right the way internally up and out the top of the rose, turned the wire over at the top and then pulled it back down through the rose. And I wanted to shout at her, no, don't do it that way, that's a really unkind way to prepare a buttonhole. Right, so I'm going to put my glasses on for this bit. So that's the little pipped head. What I'm going to do here is put the wire gently through the bottom so that it comes out at the bottom. Then I'm going to slide the wire all the way down so it's inside. Neat, small and compact. You could do this with a needle and cotton to produce bracelets and necklaces, and then you would do the same. Go through again so that the wire comes out of the bottom, and then you slide it all the way along. And then you would keep doing this over and over and over again so that you had long trains. Or you make little wrist corsages, you could make little earrings, and then you would use your florist tape to tape that stem end there. And I haven't got florist tape with me at the moment, but you would tape the end. That could make a really nice buttonhole. You could make a headdress or a tiara with it. And if anybody wants to see those type of things, let me know, because I can always do a little video on that. You could make a bracelet. We do them in wrist corsages. If you want to create a old-fashioned sort of long shower bouquet, then that's what you would do. You would pip them into a long line like that. And that's how I was trained to do wedding bouquets when I first entered the industry. No little simple hand ties that don't take too long to produce. We had to individually wire everything and prepare it in advance. Right, so we're on to the final design. I might need my jug for this one. Now I can't remember whether I did this on YouTube or I did it for the NAFIS website, or I might have even done it for the RHS website. I'm going to take the water out. But this is basically a jam jar. It could be a tin can, you know, one that you've had your beans in. So underneath is just a basic glass bottle. And what I've done is I've collected some bark from a fallen down tree. So it looks like that. And I've shaped it, cut it into smaller bits and tied it around the outside of the container, and then used some decorative wood over the outside. Decorative string. I've covered that with some decorative string. And if you're looking for something, you know, fairly inexpensive to do, if you're doing church flowers week after week after week, this is another alternative to the design I did the first live where we covered it with ribbon. I suggested wallpaper. You can use PVC. I've used lino before now, but you can change it for the seasons or for the colour schemes, and you can sort of keep reinventing the same container. I've used just some jam jars, but they look really nice with tin cans. If you've got a restaurant or a cafe near you, they have the big tin cans that are like the commercial size, and you can do some beautiful things inexpensively, and there's a lot of texture in that. If you're using thicker stemmed flowers, then you don't really need to have any support inside the vase, but I've got quite thin flowers in this arrangement. So I'm going to roll my piece of chicken wire into a little bit of a ball, nothing too complicated, and I'm going to sit it in the sort of neck of the vase. I've just said roll it into a ball, and now I'm saying don't roll it into a ball. I'm just thinking I'm going to sit it on top of the vase rather than push it in the vase. Don't do what I say, do as I do. So the reason I don't want it in the vase is because it's going to sink down to the bottom. So let's have a little look. So it's sitting just on the top of the vase there to support my flowers. Right, okay, I'm just going to check that there's no questions. Okay. Yeah. So somebody's wanting a little buttonhole or a corsage, so I can do that for you. So that's today's container. let's just swap back. And at this stage I would fill it up with water. These look amazing as a big line of arrangements all across sort of the front of the altar or the back of the altar. If you're doing wedding flowers, they look really great across the front of the top table. They're amazing down the side of the aisles. You can get family to collect the jam jars or some tin cans, and they look really beautiful. And I don't have a huge amount of flowers to go in this because I want this to look very natural, very woodlandy, quite meadow style, very whimsical, a little bit eclectic. But I've got the flowers that I'm using for that special job. So this one is a very heavily scented flower called tuberose. So Polyantha tuberose. And I've got a feeling it's been renamed because they like to confuse us. But it's a lilac-y colour. It's possibly not showing up as a good lilac, but that's a lilac. This is the same flower but a bigger variety. So if you watched that unboxing, you would have seen these two. And you can take these off and make little buttonholes with those as well. So very, very pretty. And instead of making that traditional arrangement that you see so many times, I'm going to make something that's a little bit more whimsical. Nice bit of height in there, feeding through that wire netting. And what I'm thinking is that the obvious lines in this arrangement are coming vertically, so you want to continue that vertical line all the way up to the top. And one of the reasons that I decided to do this today was because I've picked up from Tesco, which is a supermarket in the UK, some bulb hyacinths that were something stupid like 52 pence. So Tesco staff can't look after their plants, so I've picked up 4 bulbs. I've used the other flowers in the design that's coming in a minute. So there were 5 hyacinths on here, but because they're in this tiny little pot, there's not enough weight in that container to hold the hyacinth up, and nobody's wanted to buy them, and they were reduced to something stupid. So I've bought the pack, thinking that I can use the cut flower in an arrangement. And I often say to you on YouTube, look in the plant section, look in the reduced section, see what's there and see whether you can arrange them. Because I've had 4 hydrangea hyacinth heads for 50 pence. They're not particularly straight, but they're going to work really nicely in my arrangement. And then I can plant these in the garden for next year, and I'm going to have pink hyacinths next year. Excuse me, I coughed then. And I'm going to have pink hyacinths in my garden next year as well, all for 52 pence. And what I quite like about the angled head is that I can sit it so it's nestled in that little gap there. Can you see that? Yeah. Glasses are going to have to come out. So I want it nestled in that gap in the front of my vase. I'm not going to try and arrange it in any particular way because this is quite natural and quite whimsical, but it sits really well in that little gap and produces some interesting combinations of textures and colours. And I've got some more spray roses. These have come from a supermarket and they were in a bunch with orange roses, which I'm possibly going to use for a YouTube tutorial, so you might see those at a later date. But if we think back to those alternative proportions that we use, I'm not going to symmetrically balance out this arrangement. I'm going to use individual flowers, and the colour link between these is just amazing. The darker centre of that hyacinth is picked up with the dark colour of my spray rose. This you would have seen yesterday when I did the unboxing. That's the delicate apricot hydrangea. I got an obsession with hydrangeas, Lysianthus, and it's going to fit beautifully in between the different flower shapes and colours. Let's get all of these out. We also looked at some trailing, not really trailing, but this one is clematis. Think this was Sensation, and I could have used this draping over the side, but I think I'm going to use it up tall. Again, I'm not creating that formal pattern. We're thinking now that we're wandering down through a field, a really natural arrangement. These little scabious, which really are a summer flower, but look at those, aren't they fab? These last for ages. Good one to grow in the garden, and it's a good time now to plant seeds. Get in now before the weather gets too hot and too sunny, if that ever happens here in the UK. Oh, I keep moving over the wrong side. Let's get back over here. And I'm making the most of the ones that curve because they sit nicely in these little gaps within the bark. Make sure that you push. Did I add water in there? Yes, I did. Make sure that you push them into the gaps. And you could do this lengthways as well. Get yourself a long window box type container and you could fit them in there. And then another one nice and tall. And this now follows those 3/5/8 proportions. I'm not looking to do 1/3 and 2/3. I'm creating that much softer, far more whimsical design. I'm going to cut the rows a bit shorter because it's not sitting where I want it to go. Now, one of the beauties of arranging in the wire netting is that you can take the flowers out and you can put them back in and you can reuse the wire netting over and over again. That's better. So we can add that. Where's my bracelet gone? Over here. So just feed that through like so. Isn't that gorgeous? So that's my very whimsical woodland themed design. I've still made sure that all the greenery is removed off the bottom. I'm going to bring this one in a little bit higher. And I'm going to remove one of the heads because it's too visually too heavy. So that was sitting there, but it was a bit too heavy, so I've taken that off. I know on the camera there's a big gap here, but there's meant to be. This is called negative space, and we like to have negative space. And what I'm going to do, because I'm really generous, I've made this in a group of 3. So stay where you are. I've got a little mini one, little shorter one. Can you imagine these all in, all in a row? Quirky, dainty, really quite pretty. And that one has got beautiful hyacinths draping down over the front. I'll just move these so you can see it and I can talk through it. So we've got those very dainty hyacinths peeking through the gap of that bark. You could do that all the way around at the bottom, and they've only cost me, the 4 heads cost me 50p. They weren't open like this when I bought them, they were still in bed, but what a bargain, I think. Nice and tall at the back, and then I can tuck in these 2 little shorter down designs to create a little natural sort of woodland glade. That's, I think, beautiful. And that's it. You can go and have a break. You can go and have a tea or a coffee. Now I've finished. I'm going to check for comments first. just in case I've missed something. Yeah, so Sam is asking that she would like to see buttonholes and corsages. Thank you for all the really lovely comments. Jane is telling me that Italy is doing well, but she's not telling me what the score is in the rugby. I think I've been through them all. Let's just check. Yeah, so thank you everybody again for joining me. We're an hour and 15 minutes this time, so an hour quicker than last time. Let me know in the comment box if there's anything that you would like to see in another tutorial. And don't forget, I should be saying this as I'm going along, there are loads of courses on the website that you can participate in. There are hand-tied courses. We're currently doing a funeral course, which is nearly in its 3rd week. Lots of hints and tips on there of how to arrange flowers. Join me on that Facebook group if you want. You can talk about flower arranging and ask questions on there with some like-minded people. And don't forget to let me know where you're watching from. I think we're a smaller audience than before. We're 161 views, or 162 views at the moment. A little smaller, shorter than before. I'm eternally grateful that you keep supporting me and that you follow me both on Facebook and on YouTube. We're also on Instagram as well, but the audience is sometimes younger on Instagram, so they sometimes think I'm a bit old-fashioned. No idea how they think that. What else do I need to say? I'll be back probably the end of April. The reason I didn't do the end of March this time was because it's the bank holiday weekend. So I'll hopefully be back at the end of April for another live tutorial, and it'll be at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. If there's anything you want to see in that tutorial, put it in the comment box here. If you're watching on replay, let me know what country you're watching from. I'll put my teeth back in. What country you're watching me from, and do hashtag replay, and then I know how many people are watching live and how many people are watching on the replay. So thank you as always for joining me. Thank you for your support. I am really grateful. I'm loving the lives, and we will see you for the next one. So goodbye everybody. I won't cut you off quite yet. I'll just check to see if any of you are saying goodbye. See you all very soon. Thank you, Joan. Arrangements for the church. Let me know where in the church, Joan. What part of the church? So have a great Saturday afternoon. Oh, thank you, Rochelle. She's in South Africa. I'm guessing the weather's better there. LJ Parker, she loves the natural, rustic, whimsical sort of designs. Thank you, Carol C. Goodbye to you too. Goodbye, Sarah. Have a great afternoon. See you for the next one. I'm going to cut you all off now, but you can keep writing, keep commenting. I will see you soon.